with what a piecewise function is, which if you look down the page here, you can see a couple of them as examples, but it's just a function. So it would pass the vertical line test, defined in pieces. So there's going to be a couple pieces. I feel like all the ones that we're going to work on together either have 2 pieces or 3 pieces. They could have 4 or 5, 6. We're not going to do that. We're just going to have 2 pieces or 3 pieces on any of our graphs. And all the ones we're going to work with are going to be linear. So they're all going to be pieces of lines. All right, so for our purposes, one of the key things that we're going to need for working on this is to be able to rate the equation of a line. I'm going to show you how to do it from a graph just so it's easy. So I just want you to think about the form just y equals mx plus b. And if you have a graph, the only 2 things I'm going to need to get from the graph, you're just going to need to figure out what's the slope and what's the y-intercept. Those are the only 2 things you're going to need from the graph. And if you can get that from the graph, you can write these equations. It's just a little bit bizarre. All right, so I'm going to scooch this up a bit. So this has 2 pieces, right? 2 pieces. And where it switches, I'm just going to grab my highlighter and make a little vertical line here. So I switch between the different pieces at some particular x value. On this particular graph we have here, the x value here is 2. That's going to be part of how we write our equation for this, but not for a moment. So that's important. Where do I switch between the 2 pieces? The first piece, we're just going to try to write y equals mx plus b. So just go from left to right when you do this. Can you guys tell, just pick 2 points that go right through a corner. Can you tell what the slope of that first piece is? 1/2. If you want to grab just any 2 points, go from left to right, I have to go up 1/2. So my slope is 1/2. So I'm going to write y equals 1/2 x. Now, can you tell from that graph what the y-intercept is? Where does it cross the y-axis? 3. All right, so you just wrote the equation of the first piece. All right, now the second piece is a little trickier because it doesn't cross the y-axis, so we'll need that. I'll show you how to do it in a second. But first thing first, can you tell me the slope? Just pick 2 pieces that go right through a corner. Can you tell the slope of this piece? It's not 2. If you have to, okay, if you grab 2 points, right? Any 2 points on here that go right through a corner, I would tell you go from left to right. If you have to go down and right, the slope's negative. If you have to go up and right, the slope is positive. So what do you think the slope is for the second piece? It's -2. Okay, so I'm just going to write y equals -2x. Now, this one's a little bit tricky, but I promise I won't give you anything that's not a nice number. I can't see the y-intercept, right, on the graph, but I can use the slope, and I'm just going to use my highlighter to do this. This is not part of the function. What I would do, I'm just going to use slope and just back this up until it touches the y-axis. So if I was going backwards here, I'm going to go up 2/1, up 2/1, and then I can just visually kind of figure out where that would cross the y-axis. Can you guys see if I use the slope to back that up, where would that cross the y-axis? At 5, do you see that? Okay, so the equation of this piece, we just have part of it. It's -2x plus 5. Here's how you write the piecewise function. I'm just going to come over to the side. Now, because it's a function, I'm going to use function notation. So I'm going to write f of x. And you don't have to draw this perfectly in any way, shape, or form, but this is going to have kind of a brace in front of it. And I've got 2 pieces. It does not matter the order that you put these in. F of x is the same thing as y equals. So if I have f of x equals, it's y equals. So when I wrote these on the graph, I just wrote y equals mx plus b format. You don't have to write the y equals part if you have this f of x, or if you want to put a y, I don't care, that's fine too, out in front. I just write the mx plus b part. So I'm just going to write 1/2 x plus 3. And I'm not totally done with that, but just for the moment, I'm going to write the 2 pieces down. I'm going to put a little comma here. Now, the other piece, again, I don't have to write the y equals because putting this f of x out in front takes care of that. So I'm just going to write mx plus b for that second piece was -2x plus 5. Okay, so for a piecewise function, the other part that we have to write down is for which part of the graph am I using which piece. To do that, we're just going to write a little inequality for each part, and it's going to be based on where this switched. So this is switching at the x value of 2. So all this way, I'm using the first piece until I get to x equals 2. All you're going to do to write that as an inequality, I'm going to say this is for x values. They're going to the left of that vertical line. So left less than goes to the left. If the circle's filled in, you're just going to do less than or equal to. If it's open, it would just be a plain less than. But this one is saying for x values to the left of that -2. All right, now it has to be a function to write these, so it has to pass the vertical line test. So that's why you're going to have a filled in circle. This one is open. It still passes the vertical line test because it's only touching that one point if I were to do the vertical line test, so this is a function. The other inequality, that I'm using this piece on the right side of that line, so that is for the x values, open circle here, greater than goes to the right, so it should just be greater than, oh, I don't know why I put a -2. Sorry guys, that's +2. I don't know why I put -2. Both of these are positive. So the first piece is on the left side of -2, so it's for x values less than or equal to -2, +2, I keep saying that. Okay, and then the other piece is for right side of 2, so it's just x is greater than 2. This is plain greater than because you got an open circle. This is less than or equal to because you got a filled in circle. It's the only difference. Does anybody have any question at the moment? All right, let's try one that has 3 pieces. All right, now this one's kind of tricky because 2 of the pieces don't touch the y-axis, so it's going to be a little bit harder to do mx plus b. See if you could tell me, grab 2 points that go right through a corner. See if you could tell me the slope of this first piece. And go from left to right, so you would have to go up and right, so it should be positive. Can anybody tell what the slope of that piece is? Up 2/3. Yep, you're going, just grab 2 points, you're going up 2/3. All right, so 2/3 x. That's my mx. I need my b, which I cannot see. So I'm just going to grab my highlighter here. I'm just going to continue this, just use that slope again. So I'm just going to go up 2/3. And right there, I'm on the y-axis. So what's my y-intercept? If I kept this line going, what would my y-intercept be? -1. So it's 2/3 x minus 1. All right, this little piece, my favorite. If it's just a nice horizontal line, all right, there's no slope. A horizontal line has a slope of 0. So it's literally just going to be y equals, you just got to tell me what the y coordinate of all those points are. Can you tell from the graph? 5. All right, so this piece would literally just be y equals 5. Just a plain, you just tell me the y coordinate of the point. That's it. All right, and then our third piece, all right, can we tell what the slope of this third piece is? What is it? It's 4. All right, so I'm going up 4/1 between the points. So this is going to be 4x, my mx. I need my b, which I can't see. This one, I'm going to have to back up to go to the y-axis. So I'm going to go down 4 and back 1. And so if I do that, and I promise I won't give you anything that doesn't cross at a nice number, but you guys see that if I continued that line, it would cross at -8. So that's my third piece. All right, so I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to write f of x because this is a function. All right, I might make it just a little bit bigger because we have 3 pieces for this one. So f of x is the same thing as y equals. So you don't have to write the y equals. I'm just going to write these pieces just from left to right. So the first piece we looked at was mx plus b 2/3 x minus 1. The second piece is just a horizontal line, so literally I just have to write the 5. And then the third piece is the 4x minus 8. And I'm just going to put a little comma because you got to tell me for what x values I'm using what piece. All right, so I'm going to come back to my graph. So I switch between the first 2 pieces at always an x value. So for this graph, this is switching over between pieces, I'm not on the screen, at -3. All right, so I'm going to start my interval here. This first piece is on the left side of that. This is an open circle. So I'm going to say this is for x values. Less than goes to the left. So just a plain less than, so to the left of -3. Now, the one in the middle, this will be a little weird. I'm going to do a compound inequality. The one in the middle, I'm going to start that up with the -3. Now, the x values are going to go between -3 and we're going to switch over between the second and the third piece a little bit farther over on the graph at x equals 1. So that's going to be the other number. All you got to do for the compound inequality, I'm going to put x in the middle. Those two numbers, just on either side, that's where I'm using that piece, -3 and +1. The inequality symbols always point to the left. This circle is filled in, so it's going to look like less than or equal to, and then this circle's open, so a plain less than. What that says is x is greater than or equal to -3, but less than 1. So between those two values, if you set that up correctly, smaller number goes to the left, larger number goes to the right. The arrows should always point to the left. So it's saying bigger than -3, but less than 1 at the same time. And then the third piece, this goes to the right of 1. So this is for x values. Now, filled in circle, greater than or equal to, because that circle's filled in, greater than or equal to 1. Does anybody have any questions? I know this is really tricky. We're just trying to write equations of lines and then tell me for which x values are you using those pieces. Okay, I'm going to try one more with you. This one has 3 pieces again. All right. Maybe. Now, let's just look at the first piece, as I go from left to right. Can you guys tell what is the slope of this first piece here? I think this has a fraction for a slope. Can you tell what the slope of that first piece is? Like rise over run. If I grab 2 points that go right through a corner, go left to right, what's my slope? I have to, when I do that, if I go from left to right, I have to go down and to the right, so the slope should be negative. Can you guys tell what it is? -3/2. Okay, so y equals mx, so I'm going to write -3/2 and then just put an x next to it. So similar to some of the other questions, I can't see where this crosses the y-axis. So I'm just going to continue that forward, just going to use my highlighter. I'm just going to go down 3/2, and then right there will put me on the y-axis, and I'm at -6. So if we did have more of that line that we could see, it would intersect the y-axis at -6. So the equation of that piece is going to be -3/2x minus 6. All right. Now, the piece in between, what's the slope of this piece? 1/2. Now, this one's nice. I can see where that crosses the y-axis because it crosses the y-axis. What's my y-intercept for that piece? -5. So this would just be 1/2 x minus 5. And then all you got to do, if you ever have just a horizontal line, it's just going to be y equals a number. Just got to tell me what the y coordinate of all those points would be. So 6. All right, so there's my 3 pieces. I didn't do a good job writing that. So we'll do f of x equals, my first piece, just write the mx plus b. So -3/2x minus 6. The second piece was the 1/2 x minus 5. And the third piece is just the number 6. All right, then all you got to do to write which x values you're using which piece is figure out where they switch over. So the first piece and the second piece looks like we switch over here at -2. And you don't have to write that on the graph. I'm just going to do it on mine. And then the second piece and the third piece switch over when x equals 4. So -2 and 4 are what we're going to use to write our intervals there. All right, that first piece is on the left side of -2. So it's x values, If it's a filled in circle, I'm going to write less than or equal to, less than goes to the left, and then just write that number, which is -2. In the middle, this is running between -2 and +4. So I'm going to write -2, x in the middle, +4, and then for your inequality symbols, you got to see if it's an open circle or closed circle. These guys are both open. So both the inequality symbols should point to the left. This would say for x values bigger than -2, but less than 4. So between those two. And then the third piece, this is going to the right of the 4. This has a filled in circle, so it's going to be greater than goes to the right. So x is greater than, and then greater than or equal to, since that circle's filled in, 4. Is anybody having a question? It's not terrible. It's writing 3 equations of lines basically in one problem, and then telling me for what x values you're using it. All right, now, the evaluating, again, it's not hard, but it's weird. So I'm just going to give you a little example. We're going to use the same graph for example 2, but let's say I gave you evaluate a piecewise function at f of 3. Here's what you're going to do. They are giving you in the parentheses the x value you want to look at. All right, so here's how you do this. You're going to find that x value, bless you, on the graph. All right, and what you're going to do is you're going to meet the graph, and your answer is going to be the corresponding y value for that point. All right, so whatever they give you, f of 3, f of 4, f of 10, whatever the number is, that's the x value. You're going to find that x value on the picture, and we're just going to meet the graph at that place, and whatever that y value is, that's what you would get if you evaluated the piecewise function at that place. Now, this is just for a graph. If you have an equation, we're going to do that tomorrow. That's a little bit different. So I just copied the graph that we just did at the top of this page, is just underneath. So I'm using the same exact graph. What you want to do, if I'm going to do this first question, just find -6 on the x-axis. And I'm going to scooch this up just a little bit so we can see the graph. Okay, so wherever -6 is at, right over here, just come up or down, depending on where it's at. This one I'm going to come up. You're going to meet the graph. Whatever the y value is on that point, that's your answer. So if I go to -6, what's my y value? 3. Done. That's the answer. All right. I'm just going to go across the top here. If I go to 0, so 0 would just be at the origin. To meet the graph in that case, I'd have to go down. What's my y value if the x value is 0? -5. All right. Now, this one is extremely tricky. So if I give you 4 as the x value, so come over, here's 4. I have 2 options because there's actually, this is where the graph switches between the pieces. So if I have you looking at 4, does anybody know which piece should I use if I ask you to look at 4? Should I use the open circle or the closed circle? The closed circle. The closed circle means you can actually be equal to that value. So if it's a tie, like this is, there's 2 different places I could go here. Don't go to the open circle because you don't actually touch that point. So if I go to 4, I want to go up to the closed circle. So then that answer would be 6. Sorry guys, I'm off the screen a little bit. All right, if I went to the x value of -2, so this would be a tie also. If I went to the x value of -2, what would you tell me the y value was? -3. Good. You're going over here and you pick this one, so -3. All right. If I went to the x value of 8, what would you tell me your y value was? 6. You're just right up here. This is on the 6. All right. What if I pick the x value of 2? Should be -4. Is anybody having a question about how to evaluate? It's not terrible. Okay, just that's your x value, what they're giving you in the parentheses, and you just meet the graph and tell me the y